April the 10th, 2026. Guys, you're looking at a map of the Middle East, and we've been focusing a lot right here on this hook in the Straits of Hormuz. Notice that it does this, looks like a screen door hook. Anyway, the attention's been there, and I mentioned the hook because going back to the Magog situation. But anyway, what we're seeing now is more attention is being moved into the Israeli theater of things than we've seen in the last month or so. And we talked about it briefly last night, but here's Israel. Right here, here's Jerusalem, and it goes up right here to the Lebanese border. Here's Tyre in Lebanon right there. And so what the IDF is doing, guys, they want to take over the southern section of, again, Lebanon. And that would be from the Litani River, which is this valley right here. See that green section? It runs all the way to the sea right down here. That includes Tyre. And that's a biblical city, and it has a very colorful history, we'll put it that way. Tyre was an island. I think it was Alexander guys that came in. And I may be wrong, but you got a lot of Roman stuff here, the Hippodrome and things like that. But forever, this was an island. And they were very boastful about how protected and how secure they were. And then when the invading armies came in, they basically tore down a lot of the city areas here and built a 200-foot causeway from the mainland over to the island and took it. And there's stories back then, biblical stories, talking about the fire coming upon the walls that really move all the way into the current situation that we're seeing today, because there is a refugee crisis now, because this is included in the evacuation zone. Again, the river comes out, let me back this up a little bit right here, right up here. And so what they're doing is they want everything, this is the Litani River, see that? Everything south of this river evacuated as a buffer zone, which will become Israeli territory, and it comes all the way through here. Now, one thing about it, they want everything to the south. And the river really runs down the middle of a lot of agricultural area. If you look closely at some of these maps, you can see the extensive orchards and planting and things like that. And because of the Litani River, it's not that big, right? It's not like the Mississippi River, or anything that big, but it is very important. And so I don't know what's going on as far as how that will happen with that close proximity being at war. And so you've got 1.2 million that have been told to evacuate this area. So if you were to draw a line right here from Karf Kila straight across through the river, that's 10% of Lebanon. They want everybody north of this river. They've already blown the bridges up. They've got one bridge left out of the 8 that crosses Litani that they've reopened one lane on, and that's the only evac route out. Guys, think about that. It's basically a lot of people are trapped. And so as they're pushed into northern Lebanon, central Lebanon, they're also creating a refugee crisis in Syria. And this is catching the attention of Turkey. They've already declared, Turkey has, that this is a war crime situation. And even going back when it was just focused in Iran. So Turkey has starting to change a little bit. When we talk about Gog and Magog. But guys, they are now they're watching this. Also, Jordan is watching it also. Here's the West Bank again. Let's pull up Jerusalem's here. Jordan is now starting to condemn Israel's attack in Lebanon, even though when the war first started a month or so ago, they were working with the U.S. to shoot down missiles coming over the Jordan area. And it looks like the main concern of the country it's not just the humanitarian crisis in the area of the southern sections of Lebanon, but no one wants the refugees. Jordan doesn't, Syria doesn't, Turkey doesn't. And so you've got economic problems, but you also have the refugee crisis, and you're having a humanitarian outcry from this area, guys. Again, here's Tyre, here is the section. Now, they're saying they're going to tear down every city. This is the IDF, and make it a basically no man's land. But this is a large piece of property, very huge. And they said that they were going to allow a few Druze and Christian villages to make it, or small cities to make it, if they did not become infiltrated. But you've got Iran's strongest army here. That's their elite army. Their special forces is the ones that are here, and they are backed heavily. So you got the argument going back, or what now, has it been 4 days, saying that Lebanon was not part of the deal. Of course, Iraq is saying it was, Turkey is saying it was, Russia says it was. It was not a written contract or anything, though. U.S. and, of course, IDF are saying it is not part of the deal. But because of this humanitarian crisis, guys, that Israel has caused all of a sudden, I mean, I'm just saying it like it is, then this is going to be part of that hook in the jaw. This humanitarian crisis coming out of Lebanon will bring the nations together like they've never been brought before. And you cannot have this discussion without playing a few more chess moves in your thought pattern, to be logical. Maybe I'm too highly illogical, but anyway, will the U.S. finally say enough is enough, Israel? You're taking out the bridges. You want 1.2 million people to get out of there, and you've got one lane of traffic. And on that one bridge, guys, on the Latana River that has one lane, they're still under attack in many areas right around the bridge. They tell people to evacuate and then start attacking that area just a few moments after that, not really giving anyone much time. It's kind of a wholesale slaughter deal if they're not careful, but you're talking about this entire section of area. And in these mountains, guys, these Christian civilizations that they're saying they're going to let make it have been in place for 1,000 years. Israel wants to take it. And it goes back, guys, just again, logical thinking. This was all started in 47 and 48 to bring about this war. There was no logical reason for it to happen. Especially when Christ told us there would be Jews claiming to be Jews, but are not of the synagogue of Satan. Christ said that, I didn't. Now, I'm not on any side in this war as far as the IDF and Lebanon, as far as their military interest, because right now the IDF has the hand over them. But you've got, again, Iran's strongest army involved. You're about to have Syria involved, and possibly Turkey. Don't forget that little island sitting out here, that right here called Cyprus, that they're not real pro-IDF either. Let's just say it like that. So you've got Syria here. You've got Turkey that is the northern border for all of these places, including Iraq and Iran. And they are not happy at all either. They're saying humanitarian reasons, and they have set up, Turkey has, kind of a war zone, not a wall, physical wall, but checkpoints and things since this conflict started, and really right before that. So they are in charge of their borders here along this line because of this conflict. And we are, again, Israel does not stop bombing. You saw the video yesterday. They are destroying sections of Lebanon. If they don't stop that, with all the humanity involved in it, the displacement, lack of food, lack of transportation, lack of water in many areas, then the world will step in against Israel. But that's the way that Satan planned this, and we're seeing it come to fruition. Right now, we got Vance coming. He may have already landed back in Islamabad for this weekend, second stage of the peace talks. And I'm sure this, what you and I are talking about, will be a big section of the topic. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about that is because will the U.S. hang tight with Israel in this situation? Because we saw Trump get mad at them when they started bombing some areas that Trump didn't want bombed. Remember that a couple weeks ago? And but the only thing that would stop the U.S. from coming against Israel is the fact that we've had centuries of, I guess you'd call it a Zionist brainwashing, and most of it was lies about how all of this came about, who's involved, and things like that, and who's supposed to support this conflict like us. And I don't know of many true Christian Zionists, to be honest with you. I know people that say they are, but it's almost an oxymoron if you think about how this thing comes about. Anyway, Albert Pike and them knew exactly what they were doing because they had been told by their Luciferian doctrine master. Remember, that's in the Albert Pike letters. People will be turned against their religion and they will bring about the Luciferian worship. That's what we're seeing. We were told, we were warned by Christ that this was going to happen. So right now, again, we have major problems erupting as we speak in Lebanon, and the rest of the world is watching it and starting to prepare. So you've got not only this hook in the strait, which Trump's not real happy saying not many ships are moving, and he said that was part of the deal. And he's kind of staying out of the war right now. But another thing that's happened is that the UAE started using one of their pipelines that handled about 600,000 barrels a day, I think it was, because the straits were closed. Well, Iran has attacked that pipeline and shut it down. So how will that affect oil prices? Let's take a quick look at the market just for a moment. It's going to make them go up because now you've shut down another passage out of this area. Now you've got the Dow down 238, S&P down 8, NASDAQ 55, and they're saying it's, again, all of this up and down in the market has to do with the fragile Iran ceasefire. Because nobody knows what to do. But I tell you what's happening is, in the overall world chess game, who is benefiting from oil not coming out of the Middle East? It's the other people like Russia that sell it. You understand what I'm saying? And that is another factor on if Russia would get involved. A lot of people are still tying Turkey and Russia together in the Magog thing, and we did a video showing it was pretty much Turkey, not saying that Russia's was not Rosh. That was a misinterpretation. But not that they won't get involved, they could. But right now, with the Straits of Hormuz choked, they have the upper hand on selling their oil at premium price. Think about that. So how will that play into the chess game? Let's take a look at the oil prices. Now, as of 11 a.m. Central Time, guys, Brent is at 96.94, oil 99.07. So Brent's up 97 cents. Regular oil's up $1.02. Natural gas is down. The Murban crude, which is our jet fuel, not only military, but for some of your big airliners, especially in Europe, they're way down, back to 97.97. Now, when I say down, it's really kind of messed up, isn't it? Because we were around 60 on our oil when this started. And we knew that that was kind of the break point. I've heard for years that the oil company said they have to have 60 per barrel to make it. So when it goes to 70 or something like that, you know, it's easier to understand they're making a little bit of money. But it's kind of bad when you say it's down to 96 and 99. And is that a psychological thing that they created? Because there's a lot of people making money off oil at this price. A lot of people. And why would they want to bring it back down? We don't know. It's already diesel, in Arkansas, over $6. And I think a lot of that is people taking advantage of the situation, especially a lot of the gas stations that are not U.S. owned. Now, guys, this map is Israeli strikes in Lebanon yesterday and the day before, April 8th, April 9th. And the reason I'm coming here is to show you that here's the Latana River. Here's Tyre. The strikes are much further north than just in the area of the conflict right now. And it more than likely is because you've got Hezbollah stationed in many places here. Beirut may be one of their big headquarters, so they're weakening infrastructure back behind the lines. But this continued push north again is going to be met head on by a major conflict. Now, again, Turkey's going to be the main push, but Syria, I think, is going to get involved maybe at the same exact time. But as of today, the military landscape in Syria is defined by a transitional government's attempt to consolidate power following the fall of the Assad regime in late 2024. The country is split among a new national army, autonomous Kurdish forces, and various insurgents of foreign-backed groups. It's split, it's divided. The Syrian armed forces, that's the transitional government since the fall of Assad, guys. The primary military forces, now the reconstituted Syrian armed forces, or the SAF, under the command of President Ahmad al-Sharaa and Defense Minister Murhaf Abu Qasa. Now, this SAF force is built from former opposition units, integrated militias, and defected members of the old Syrian Arab army. Its main objective is unifying the state and reasserting central control. In early 2026, it launched a major offensive in northeastern Syria to seize strategic oil fields and dams. New divisions there, the specialized units like the 400th and the 56th Reserve Divisions are being established to replace the defunct Assad-era divisions. What they're creating, this is just one of the forces, but what are we seeing? How would when that hook in the jaw occurs and when higher powers step in, guys, and these armies turn against themselves? Can you see how that could happen very easily when just in Syria we have about 4 divisions that are trying to unite? But what happens is you'll have some of them wanting to step into a power vacuum. Others fighting over territory when they may be together now fighting or preparing to fight Israel. But will they continue to do that? Because again, they are divided. And it makes perfect sense to me because again, number 2 is the Syrian Democratic Forces, not the SAF, the SDF. The Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces remain a significant, though currently diminished, military group. Following a January 2026 government offensive, the SDF retreated into Kurdish military areas like Qamishli and Hazakah. A fragile agreement reached in February of this year outlines plans to merge the SDF into the national military as 3 new divisions, though political tensions regarding Kurdish autonomy remain high. Again, they're not going to glue this all together the way they're hoping. It's going to turn against them. And we've been told about it. And now possibly who will turn out to be the strongest is called the SNA, which is the Syrian National Army, but it's Turkey-backed. These are Turkish-backed forces. It was a primary coalition of Turkish-supported rebels that helped topple Assad. Most SNA units have been formally dissolved and absorbed into the transitional government's Ministry of Defense. They still maintain a strong presence along the northern border in areas like Afrin and Jarablus, often serving as frontline units against Kurdish enclaves. Number 4, ISIS is still involved. Thank you, McCain. Islamic State, ISIS. Despite losing territory, ISIS continues to operate as an active insurgency in northeast Syria, conducting attacks against both the government and Kurdish forces. So you can see how easy the Bible can come into fruition here simply because they're already so divided that it would be easy for them to turn their swords upon each other. You've got the Iranian-backed militias like Hezbollah and the Islamic resistance in Iraq remain active in pockets of Syria. They have continued to launch drone and rocket attacks against U.S. and Israeli targets during this broader 2026 conflict. You've got post-Assad insurgents. Former loyalists have formed small insurgent groups such as the Coastal Shield Brigade in Latakia and the Syrian Popular Resistance to oppose the new government. I guess that would be kind of like Antifa, huh? Armed Antifa. So it's not going to be hard at all again to, what would it take, guys? What would it take for these to suddenly turn on each other? Would it be a land dispute, a who's going to be in control dispute, some type of massacre? I don't know, but it looks like the world's about to turn against Israel. I don't know what's going to happen with Trump. But then it's just about all coming together, and you start seeing some of these divisions break out. But it's going to be a lot of trouble between now and that point. Now, the U.S., we got presence there. We currently are at outposts like Tower 22 and in the northeast to coordinate counter-ISIS operations. So we're there on the border. Russia, Moscow retains a reduced footprint of approximately 4,000 troops and has reaffirmed its support for Syria's sovereignty under the new transitional leadership. The IDF has conducted incursions into the Quneitra Governorate to target Iran-backed infrastructure and maintain a buffer zone near the Golan Heights. So nothing is glued together there. It's like a bunch of overgrown kids that are rather burn it down than to see anybody take anything. In other words, we'll blow this whole thing up. You're not going to come here and do this. And instead of sitting down and agreeing on something. But you know what the big separating knife is? That sword? It's called religion. Now, everybody has some type of religion. You believe in something. I believe in Jesus Christ, and I believe in my Father in heaven, his Father. But what the problem is that when I say it's the sword of religion, because so many times the dark powers use it to divide us. The Christians against everybody else and everybody else against everybody else. You see what I'm saying? So instead of, like Christ said, treat everyone the way you want to be treated, let's get along, love your Father, they don't do that. They prefer to battle and war for profit, bloodlust, power. But we know where it's going, so all we can do is watch it. I hope that something positive comes out of this Islamabad Accord, but we're not getting a lot of truth out of any of the people there. Again, we'll be watching that. That's going to start sometimes tonight because it'll be Saturday, 8.5 hours in Tehran before it is here. Also, this afternoon about 6 p.m., if the weather's clear, I'm going to try to go live stream on the re-entry of Artemis 2. They're saying it's going to burn back in for about 15 minutes in superheated situations, so there'll be a 15-minute blackout for radio transmission and all. And I understand that, and then they will come in and land. And so we're going to try to cover that, guys. Again, if they're getting good shots, we will see. I still have my doubts about if they went to the moon or not. Now, different companies around the world, different space companies are saying their telemetry match that some kind of craft did go in that direction. I don't know if it was a manned craft or another unit, because you've got to go through the Van Allen radiation belt. And what they say about that, guys, is there's weak spots in the Van Allen radiation belt. And I think that's up if you kind of go north in the atmosphere, if you understand what I'm saying, or in space and over, it's like a ring. But again, after 50 years, what's going on? You know. Anyway, I hope and so I can just imagine the Artemis crew that we saw, if they were really on the ship, that were orbiting the Earth, while some type of other unmanned craft went out there and let the world's telemetry watch that craft go around the planet or go around the moon. Because people are reporting that has happened. That telemetry indicates that something was out there. Well, we'll see. Or maybe we'll never know. Or is it a grift between NASA and the Space Force? Now, they're not technically or economically tied together, I don't think. But it would be a hell of a way to get good money into your Space Force. And I'm not saying we don't need that. But why do they think we need to go to the moon or to Mars when we're in financial trouble? What are we going to do? Figure out in 50 years that everybody that has went to the moon, nobody came back? Or they stayed very shortly? I mean, you don't have, how are you going to eat? What are you going to drink? How are you going to import all that to a place like that? What are you going to breathe? And so I think that we've been seeing a lot of BS about the space travel. I'm not talking about a dome or anything like that. I'm just saying money rules. And where's the money in doing that? Where's the money you're going to make back in any person's lifetime on lunar travel or lunar vacations or lunar cities? How is that going to work out? It's not. So where's the money going? Just doesn't make sense, does it, guys? Anyway, we're watching this. You watch it. All eyes on Vance and Islamabad in the next several hours. See what happens on that. And I'm going to be watching for anything coming from the White House because and I want to ask you this question at the end of the video here, will Trump finally get enough of the problems that Israel's causing, the burden of the world, the burden of the nations? Will he finally get enough of that and back away? That would be something to definitely watch for. Again, I don't know if the Zionism brainwashing is so saturated into the minds of some of these people that they can't see the forest for the trees. But we'll be watching it, guys. We'll see. So pay attention. Keep your head on a swivel with these events. Things can change pretty quickly. We're watching it. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.